SpongeBob's Secret by Peanuts on Fire. A bright, sunny day in Bikini Bottom, and Patrick has just emerged from his giant rock home. He felt like visiting SpongeBob because he had no other goals or purposes in his miserable life. He just did not realize it yet. He walked to SpongeBob's house and knocked on the door. Patrick waited for a response, but nobody had came yet. Usually the sponge was quick to respond to Patrick's pleas for attention. Patrick was like a child to SpongeBob, a starfish incapable that SpongeBob coddled and cared for him like a mother. Patrick was getting sick with anxiety as the seconds passed by. Did SpongeBob not love him anymore? Patrick could really feel the tears in his eyes. The door opened. Before him stood the yellow sponge, but in a shy stance and reluctant positioning halfway behind the door. Patrick did not read these signs and ran up to SpongeBob, giving him a big hug, one that almost snapped the poor sponge into two.
"Hey, SpongeBob, want to go jellyfishing today?"
Explained Patrick, excited as ever. "Patrick," said SpongeBob meekly as he stepped away from Patrick. His voice was weak and he sounded as if he was about to cry.
"SpongeBob, what's the matter, buddy?"
Patrick said, with a concerned expression on his face. "Don't you remember anything, Patrick? I don't go by SpongeBob anymore," squeaked SpongeBob. Patrick tried to remember hard about such an event taking place. When did SpongeBob change his name, and how could I forget such a thing? Darn, I feel like such an idiot sometimes, Patrick thought to himself, loathing in his head. Patrick stuttered with a frustratingly stupid manner.
"Can I have a hint?"
"No, Patrick, you cannot. If you really cared about me and who I am, why should I ever tell you?" said SpongeBob with tears in his eyes. Patrick had no idea what was happening. Patrick was flabbergasted at the rude treatment. How could he even, a decades-old relationship, being broken just because he could not remember one tiny detail? Patrick couldn't remember the things all the time. Why couldn't this be any different? To mull over his problems, he went over to Squidward's house. He knocked on the door strongly. "Patrick, what do you want? Does it involve me?" said Squidward, unamused.
"Squidward, I don't think SpongeBob likes me anymore. All just because I forgot one tiny detail or something."
Patrick began to triad. "Can you go? Plus, I really don't care about your relationship issues. Plus, I don't think that yellow nuisance goes by SpongeBob anymore," said Squidward, beginning to close the door, but Patrick barged through at the last second.
"That was it, Squidward. His name. Why didn't he go by SpongeBob anymore?"
said Patrick. "Of course, you idiot. His operation was weeks ago, don't you remember?" said Squidward, seemingly to be genuinely shocked by Patrick's lack of knowledge.
"Operation? What do you mean, Squidward? I must know," said Patrick, moving closer to Squidward.
"Well, if you want to find out, maybe you should go to his house and ask him," said Squidward, pushing Patrick away.
"Wow, that's a great idea, Squidward. I didn't know you cared so much," said Patrick.
"I don't. I just want you to get out of my house," said Squidward, promptly kicking the Patrick out of his house.
"Man, that Squidward sure is smart. Now all I need to do is break into SpongeBob's house so I can talk to him,"
said Patrick. Patrick then, like the sneaky and elegant starfish that he was, he broke into SpongeBob's window and entered his house without consent. The next thing to do was to find SpongeBob. He rummaged throughout under all the kinds of furniture in the multiple rooms, just in case he was feeling embarrassed and was hiding. Just then, he heard a pattering feet down the stairs. It must be SpongeBob. Patrick waited patiently for SpongeBob to come. However, SpongeBob had just come out of the shower. He heard the noises from downstairs. He figured it was just Gary, but was shocked and terrified when he found out it was an intruder in his house the whole time. SpongeBob dropped his towel out of pure fear and shock, and Patrick was just shocked when he found out SpongeBob's secret. SpongeBob was a woman, a naked woman. "Patrick, didn't I tell you to leave me alone? What are you doing in my house?" said SpongeBob, attempting to cover himself up.
"SpongeBob, I didn't know that you were a girl. You think you know a person," said Patrick in a deep thought.
You really are an idiot, aren't you? Don't you remember me going in for my operation? I talked to you about it so much, and you helped me not to worry. I thought you cared, said SpongeBob sadly.
I do care. I'm just stupid. I think you would have caught on to that at this point, SpongeBob,
said Patrick, deflecting his own guilt back at SpongeBob. For the last time, Patrick, my name is not SpongeBob. It's Spongella, said Spongella, deeply offended by Patrick's rude behavior.
Well, geez, Spongella, I can see why I'm not wanted. I guess I'll just leave then,
said Patrick. Oh, you're not going anywhere. You trespassers have been too great to go unrequited, said Spongella, as her eyes began to grow fierce, blood red.
What do you mean? Quivered Patrick, growing nervous.
I may only have become a woman recently, Patrick, but I've always secretly been a lichen, said Spongella, as her appearance became more wolf-like.
Ah! Patrick screamed as he ran for the door.
Squidella, don't let him escape, said Spongella. Just then Patrick was blocked by Squidward, but it wasn't Squidward. He looked more feminine and more furry than ever before. Squidella held down Patrick with a terrible force, and both Squidella and Spongella began to tear apart Patrick and feast on his innards.
Wow, that's a scary story, said Patrick.
Yes, Patrick, and that's what's going to happen if you forget my new name after the operation, said Spongella in a soothing voice to Patrick as he lied in his bed.
Of course I won't, Spongella, said a dozy Patrick.
Good night, Patrick, said Spongella, drifting off to sleep.
Good night,
said Patrick, falling asleep beside the charming Sponge.
Thank you for watching. If you want to see more content, I'd recommend subscribing.
Also, the link to the fanfiction is in the description.